Caballerismo, Marianismo, Machismo are all ideals of modern Latin American society and have affected the private lives, but also the public lives of Latin Americans for centuries. But there are two important ideals I did not talk about in my first lecture on this subject, dominating modern Latin American societal structure. The first is the padre de familia ideal, which translated into English means father of the family. The second is the madre de familia ideal, which in English means mother of the family. Both concepts originated before the time of Christ in ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, the pater familias was the oldest living male in the household and exercised autocratic authority over his extended family. He held legal privilege over the family property and varying levels of authority over his dependents, his wife and children, certain other relatives through blood or adoption, clients, freedmen, and slaves. The pater familias was the quintessential honorable citizen and a worthy representative of his family and civic life. Within his family, he was judge, lawmaker, and executor. He held powers of life and death over every member of his extended family through ancient right. The Latin American padre de familia was ideally all of this with the exception of being permitted to decide who lived and died. The Latin American padre de familia was above all honorable and just. The well-being and social standing of his family and all the people attached to him depended heavily on him. Honorability meant financially supporting the family, but also maintaining a leadership role in public, social and private life with honesty and nobility of spirit. Honorable men also never attacked women outside their homes, as rape was considered and punished as a public and moral crime. But within the dominion of their homes, honorable men, as all other men, treated women at their discretion and according to personal codes of conduct. But honorable men had a right to privacy like nobody else, and judges sometimes invoked this right and simply verbally admonished them for mistreating a wife or daughter, assuming this public shame would alter an honorable man's future behavior for the better. The female counterpart to the ancient Roman ideal of the paterfamilias was the alma mater. The alma mater was literally the nurturing mother. But this highest form of this ideal was reserved for goddesses and not in the domain of mortal human mothers. The two ancient Roman goddesses especially described as alma maters were Ceres, the goddess of agriculture, grain, and motherly love, and Cybele, the healing mistress of wild nature, goddess of fertility, and protector in time of war. In Latin America, as Latin America entered the self-governing period, the alma mater ideal was bestowed on the shoulders of real women, the honorable madre de familia, the mother of the family. A woman in this position was often married to or widowed from a padre de familia. Her honorability stemmed from her having her own property passed down from, say, her parents, her household and estate human resource managerial expertise, her arrival to her marriage as a virgin, and maintenance of moral, but especially sexual purity throughout her entire life. She also had to bear as many children as God sent. A woman who achieved all this was seen in Latin American culture as morally superior to any man, even the most honorable. A madre de familia often extended her mothering to civic institutions. Honorable women often ran foundling homes, provided various types of social assistance to needy women and children, and instituted intellectually stimulating salon culture in Latin America's most metropolitan cities. In the end, honorable families ideally had both a padre de familia and a madre de familia. If a daughter from an honorable family had no honorable man to marry, she had a religious alternative. She could symbolically marry Jesus Christ, bring her inherited property with her to better the church, and live a devoted holy life within the protected walls of one of the hundreds of convents across Latin America. All honorable women were educated either at home or in the convent. But although Latin America had plenty of well-established universities, women were not admitted, not because they were seen as intellectually inferior, but because their sexual honor could be compromised by attending university classes with men. Honest mestizo men of all skin shades and those of African descent could rise to certain honorability through hard work and by maintaining good relationships with the people who hired them. They could even gain padre de familia status. Unfortunately, women of not higher classes did not have this same social mobility. Mestizo and indigenous women, as well as women of African descent, pretty much always worked outside the home, in farms, on ranches, or as domestic servants. If they worked inside the home, say running a boarding house or a clothes making business, they were faced with the same repressive ceiling limiting their ability to become honorable madres de familia. The reason for this is that honor for Latin American women was tied to sexual purity. Lower class women had unmonitored contact with men early and often. They rarely lived under constant protection like higher class women did. So the sexual purity of working class women was not fully protected and could not necessarily be proved. The only women in lower societal positions able to rise toward honorability were those raised in and living in convents throughout their lifespan. Living cloistered in a convent apart from men, they received constant protection, and their sexual purity could be assumed. Poor children, both girls and boys, worked, and if their families could no longer sustain them, they were often given away to honorable families. A family taking in such children used them as errand boys and scullery maids, and often either educated them at home or sent them to public school during the day, or sometimes night school. When they became adults, they were free to leave and make lives of their own with whatever skills they learned in servitude. The better families helped these young adults by lending them money to start businesses of their own or recommending them for employment once they were grown up. Often these now grown, unfortunate children remained loyal to the family that took them in, but tragically, such girls were sometimes freely used, if in secret, by the young men of the family for their own sexual initiation. In the early 20th century, educated people became concerned regarding the plight of working class women and their morally questionable status. Employers and industrialists wanting to provide honorable work for both women and men connected the sexual protection and respecting of female workers to Christianity. In Colombia, for example, industrialists hired teachers and managers and requested help from local priests as well to educate and hold men working alongside women accountable for women remaining morally pure in the workplace. But as socialism spread across Latin America in the first half of the 20th century, it carried the concept of gender equality as an integral part of its agenda. Still, even conservative Catholics, despising socialism, began changing their stance of the place of women in society. Women, as the morally superior Latin American, were encouraged to join civic life, vote, and become politically active by the mid-20th century, if only to fend off godless communism. The quality of lives lived by both women and men in modern Latin America have been highly dependent, first and foremost, on family. And they often still are. Today, women in Latin America do not need to have as many children as God sends, and do not need to remain in their domestic sphere or live cloistered in convents to achieve honorability. They're free to become presidents of nations or business tycoons and interact with men every day. Still, the madre de familia ideal is alive and well, even if the requirements have changed. And so is the padre de familia ideal, although such honorable men no longer rule their homes as if their homes were their personal kingdoms. They are expected to be much more enlightened.